Well, the main points in this nation-building plan, $4.7 billion worth, as you heard the Prime Minister say there, but only $2.5 billion is actually new money. The rest, the remaining $2.2 billion, has been drawn from money already allocated to road and rail projects across the nation. Now, some of the rail projects that will go ahead will be brought forward to happen over the next few years include new and upgraded loops on the Sydney and Brisbane link, similarly on the Melbourne and Adelaide link, and a new rail track between the Hunter Valley coal mines and Newcastle, where the port is. The road projects include another $60 million to fund black spot programs. There will also be a $1.6 billion tax incentive for business to encourage them to invest in plant and equipment stocks. Any project that they spend more than $10,000 on, they will get a 10% tax deduction. So money for infrastructure, money for business investment as well. To see what the opposition thinks of this, joining us now on the line is the Shadow Minister for Infrastructure, Andrew Robb. Mr Robb, thanks for joining us. Are you welcoming this package?
Of course, David. I mean, we support any funding for quality infrastructure projects, and we know these are quality projects because they were basically all initiated by the former coalition government. So it is important that these things get underway. You know, the Rudd government's been in power now, nearly 13 months, and this is the first major infrastructure decisions taken by this government after 13 months.
Are you saying this is policy theft? Are you saying this is policy theft?
Well, we don't care where it comes from. All I'm saying is I am pleased that they're quality projects, and I know that because they've been very thoroughly assessed and were initiated by the previous government and were funded by the previous government. So these projects have been initiated and funded by the efforts of the previous government, and I think they're being brought
forward to happen a lot sooner than they would have under the former government.
Well, that's not true. I mean, things like the Cootamundra to Parkes rail track. I think it was February this year, Lindsay Tanner, the finance minister, put a 2-year hold on the coalition's plan to spend $65 million on the very same stretch of rail. Well, now, you know, a few months later, they've now brought that one forward. So you get a little bit of a sense that they're making it up as they go along on this. But the important thing is, I think that it does flag the fact that, you know, the decisions they announced at COAG to rush forward some of the Building Australia fund has been put on hold so they can do some proper planning and assessment. I must say I'm very pleased about that. I was very concerned that they were going to make a lot of knee-jerk decisions and potentially fund poor quality projects. And what they've decided to fund today, these ones from over 12 months ago, are quality projects and will be important for Australia.
All right, on top of those projects, there's also $1.6 billion here to give business a bit of a carrot to invest in plant and equipment. They get a 10% tax deduction for any spending over $10,000. That is something new. Is that the best way to spend $1.6 billion?
Well, I think, again, that's important. It is important to try and hit different sectors of the economy. And, you know, with the prospects that are being foreshadowed, if Mr Rudd's right that, you know, the world changed as we know it some weeks ago, then there needs to be some opportunity for business to have, one, some incentive, and two, with the tax initiatives that have been announced today to you know, help their cash flow situation. So these are all things that I think need to be done, and we certainly support them.
All right, it sounds like a tick from you then. What do you make of the Prime Minister's claim that the budget will still be in surplus despite this extra spending? Do you believe that?
Well, he's the one with the internal information. We don't know. That's the bottom line. No one really knows. Certainly they're getting very close to the wire. I think what can be said is that the surplus, the huge surplus that was in place just a matter of 3 or 4 months ago, is basically fully committed. It's still maybe, you know, marginally in surplus. Who knows? We don't know that without seeing the internal figures. But most of the surplus has been spent, and it does put a question mark over, you know, how the Prime Minister may fund any further stimulus that may be required in the new year.
Yeah, but you're supporting packages like today's one, so where's your problem with spending this money?
Well, today's one is money that was fully funded. Most of it was fully funded. Some new money, but most of it...
Yeah, $2.5 billion is, in fact, most of it was new money. Only $2.2 billion was already allocated.
Well, that's a very significant sum of money, $2.2 billion. And as I say, this was money that was fully funded well over 12 months ago, during the time of the previous government, when all of these programs were identified, have been thoroughly analysed and prepared and planned. And, you know, I suppose the only thing that concerns us is that it has taken 13 months to make any decision on any of these projects. It's now being presented as a major stimulus, when in many respects, you know, the Rudd government said they came to office with a major plan for infrastructure. And here we are 13 months later, and the first decisions of any consequence, which just happened to be decisions taken by the former government, they're the first things that they've done after 13 months. So, you know, it does make you wonder what they've been doing if they did come to office with a plan, and it just undermines sort of a measure of confidence about the decisions that they are taking and the commitments that they are making about the budget still being in surplus. You do get a sense that they're making it up as they go along.
Would you like to see another budget update? We're not due to get another one until the May budget, so do you think in these uncertain times it's worth putting a bit of heat on the government to give us some figures?
I think, you know, the Prime Minister has made such a point of levelling with Australians. Time and again we hear this sort of mantra that he's going to bring Australians into his confidence, tell them what's going on, what the state of play is. And, you know, against that background, I think that we should, all of us, everyone in the community, especially business people in the community, should be given as many updates as possible about what the government anticipates is coming at us down the line, what the state of play is at the moment. And I do think that the Treasury have got a capacity, maybe not to do a major, you know, half-yearly report, but certainly to flag the major indicators throughout the budget on a more regular basis. We are at a time where the Prime Minister says the world has changed as we know it. It is unusual times, and in order to give a measure of comfort and certainty and, you know, a sense of what's going on to people, I think they have got a responsibility to more quickly put out some of the developments and the forecasts and the state of play with the balance sheet as they see it today.
Andrew Robb, before I let you go, I have to ask you about the bickering in the coalition this week, the latest from your Liberal colleague, Jamie Briggs. He said of Barnaby Joyce, and I quote, "I think Barnaby needs to make a decision over the Christmas period. Does he want to be part of the team or does he want to be a renegade? You can't be both." He says, if he wants to be a maverick, he does that outside of the coalition. Do you endorse those comments?
Well, look, we've been in coalition now for basically 60 years. We've always had issues, David, over that time, off and on. That's the nature of any sort of partnership or marriage almost as we've got it within the coalition. We've dealt with those in the past. We will deal with this one. We've got to work through it. I think the best way to work through it is internally and not to be, you know, continuing a process of discussion in the public arena. That's happening today. And I'm very confident that we will settle things down.
Okay, so your colleagues need to keep these sorts of shots at each other internal, not in the media.
I think enough's been said at the moment, and you know, I think the next stage is to you know, to get down and work out a system that will enable us to have an effective working relationship and maintain the great success that we've had as a coalition now for so long, and the sort of contribution that we can make as a cohesive team to the running of Australia.
Andrew Robb, thanks very much for your time.
My pleasure, David. Thanks.
And stay with us after